afternoon for March's Tech Tips Live. The topic today is artificial intelligence in GainSeeker. And today I am joined by Jacob Shetler, who is one of our developers you guys have not met online yet. And as always, I have Byron Shetler here, who's our president. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and pass the mic to Byron and just give you guys a heads up that please go ahead anytime during the webinar that you have a question. Feel free to go in the Q&A section. Make sure you switch it to ask the question to the host, and we'll see if we can't get your question answered. Thanks. And Byron, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Jen. So throughout the years, we have added many diagnostic, predictive, and even prescriptive statistics and tools to GainSeeker. And examples of these are included on the next few slides. The drill down wizard does all of the drilling down for you and tells you which Pareto slices are the largest. If you're looking at defect, it can quickly tell you the most common sources of problems. On the variable or measurement side, the variation wizard will slice and dice the data and tells you if the mean or standard deviation for a particular machine, shift, cavity, or any other traceability value for which you are collecting data is causing the most variation in the data or the biggest shift in the mean. You can even do a second level analysis, which, for example, would take each shift and examine it by all the other possible traceability combinations. Then it will move on to machine and do the same for each set of values. For food customers, the overpack wizard will help you identify savings if you can shift your process average closer to the target weight so you're not giving away so much product. And paired sample analysis gives you a simple correlation between two characteristics of the same part. For example, does one dimension influence another, or does a process parameter like temperature have a direct or inverse relationship to a finished good measurement value? To power up these tools even more, there are dashboard widgets that will process all the data in a department or even in your entire system and bubble up to the top the most critical issues. Thus, we have the big data widgets for defects and for SPC measurements, and the paired sample grid to analyze many relationships at once. Something new for the soon-to-be-released version 9.2 is the Defect Trend Wizard. This tool allows you to identify a baseline and then compare a different data set against it to determine if defects are trending up or down. The analysis can be time-based or traceability-based, for example, comparing 2 months or 2 shifts against each other. Here are some sample predictive stats that have been around since the DOS days. And I'd like to say predictive stats tell you it's going to rain, whereas prescriptive stats tell you to take an umbrella. This slide shows you some values on the left, and the critical column is the one colored red and green. The numbers represent the number of parts that may be produced before the data goes out of spec. The interesting piece to this is the change tool column on the far right. A simple table linking the feature with the tool affecting it then tells the operator what needs to be done to fix the situation. This is especially useful in the case of a new operator that may not have built up the process knowledge to know what action is needed to fix the problem. At this point, I would like to turn it over to Jacob Shetler, our Cloud Product Manager, as he is going to talk about how we have implemented some tools in version 9.2 that use artificial intelligence to determine if operator notes are legitimate and not just generated by an operator typing ASDF multiple times. So we'll show you some true artificial intelligence.
Not that we would have any operators do that, right, Byron?
Never happened.
But just in case, no.
All right, Jacob, take it away.
All right, thanks, Byron. Good afternoon, everyone. As Byron said, I'm Jacob. I'm the newest developer here at Hertzler Systems. The new Python command that I'm going to show you today is the text evaluator, and this is being added in GainSeeker 9.2, which will be released next month. The text evaluator command lets you compare notes or text against predefined lists or sets of notes to see similarities and differences. So let's look at our first use case, and this is evaluating notes during an inspection. So let's say you have operators that are, typing in ASDF, as Byron said, or they're just pressing space or entering a period, and you really need some better notes while operators are entering them. And you'd like to give interactive feedback on the fly. So with the text evaluator command in Python, you're going to be able to do this. So I've got a sample inspection set up here. You can see at the top I've got the part number and then some generic traceability. Looks like Jen is our operator today.
Oh, no.
That's scary.
And then we've got two pass-fails here, so we're collecting DMS data. And I have the pass-fail set up on the sub-inspection to force note. So if either of them have a fail, then I'll be forced to enter a note for that test. Then I've got a Python script running on post on this sub-inspection that's going to check the note against a predefined list that I set up of good notes to see whether or not it's similar. So let's go ahead and fill this out. Maybe the scratch was good, but it was the wrong size. So I'm going to enter a note, and yeah, we don't really have time to enter anything good. Oh, well, it looks like that note was not a good note, so I'm going to be forced to try again. So that wasn't English, so maybe I'll just write something that's English and then hope that it works. Well, yeah, that didn't work either. All right, so now Jen's going to have to actually enter a good note that makes sense. So
What are you guys doing to me?
So, it was the wrong size, so maybe the guide was off and we made an adjustment. And then we'll try and submit that, and there it went through. So the first two times that we tried to submit that sub-inspection, the PostScript prevented me from moving on because the note didn't match previously entered notes. But the last time, it was a close enough match, so it let me go through. So I've got two note sets created here. I'm going to pull up the good notes. And you can see that these are pretty generic, and they're not very long. Also, I only have 53 notes, but I was able to get a pretty good guess at whether it was good or bad from this small amount of notes. The second use case I'm going to show you is just using a Python script to evaluate previously entered operator notes. So in this use case, maybe you evaluate operator notes at the end of every week or every month. Maybe you give out bonuses based on how good your percentage is of good notes to bad notes. And this can take a really long time right now and is a very manual process. But with the text evaluator that's getting released in GainSeeker 9.2, you'll be able to evaluate notes in your GainSeeker database and export results. So I'm going to go ahead and run this Python script, and then I'll walk through what it's doing. So that was pretty fast. It evaluated a couple hundred notes in my database. And it's got it split out by operator, and then the classification on whether or not the note was good or bad, and then the note itself in case you want to audit through this list. So we're looking through here, and Jen looks pretty good. She's got a 98% good mark. So
Yay!
114 of 116, so I think she'll probably get her bonus this month.
Awesome.
And then we look through Adrian's, and she's not nearly as good, only 26%, so 19 out of 73. So she probably won't get her bonus this month. Maybe somebody should talk to her about that.
I'm going to tell her she's going to have to start making good notes on her sales demo.
That's right.
Probably what's doing it.
So let's look through this code and see what it's doing. At the top here, we're loading two different sets, a good one and a bad one, into the text evaluator. This is using the same good note set that I was using in the inspection script, which is another power of this tool, that you can use the same set in many different scenarios. The next part of the script, I'm loading up a SQL statement, which is selecting all of my D notes, so DMS data notes. Then I'm getting all the real-time failure strings from the user's configuration. This is important to replace real-time failure messages that are stored in notes in the database. This is because this can give a lot of false positives when doing natural language processor. For example, if there's a lot of notes that include X over spec or X below run or things like that, it's going to turn out that the notes match a lot or they don't match a lot, even if the rest of the note is garbage. Then we're setting up our Excel file. So here we're setting up 3 different columns: operator, classification, and note. So if you remember, those are the 3 columns that were in that Excel file. And then we're looping over all the notes. We're counting whether they're good or bad. We're doing percentages for every operator. And then at the bottom of the Excel file, we're writing out total percent good out of all the notes for all operators, and good and bad. So I'm sure many of the Excel wizards listening to this recognize a lot of these formulas that I'm using. So then at the bottom of this file, we've got 2 different functions: clean note and best guess. The clean note function is using regular expressions to remove things like real-time messages, white space, dates, and unnecessary punctuation. That way you end up with only what the operator entered during data entry.
Nice.
And then we've got the best guess function. So this is really where the power of the text evaluator comes in. If you see in the first 2 lines of this function, we're calling 2 different functions in the text evaluator object. One is evaluate against sets, and the other is evaluate against notes. The evaluate against sets function returns a list of all the sets that you have loaded into memory, so in this case, good and bad, and the probability of the note that you passed in belonging to one of those sets. So in this case, we might get back, there's a 99% probability that this note belongs in the good set and only a 1% probability that it belongs in the bad set. And then the second function here is evaluate against notes. What this one does, it looks at every note individually in each of the sets and returns the the similarities for the given note to all the notes that you have loaded in. So one of these functions looks at the entire set as a whole, and the other function looks at individual notes. And this is a lot more powerful than using just one or the other of these functions. So then at the bottom of the best guess function, I'm using the results of these 2 text evaluator commands to determine whether the note belongs in a good set, a bad set, or neither, in which case I'm returning bad. Then I'm using that return and writing it out in the Excel file, and that gets used in all of the calculations in that sheet. So some other use cases that I'd like to talk about and not show are that you could run a scheduled task to export good notes from your database. So this way, if you run this task every day or every week, you're always giving interactive feedback to the operator based on most current notes in your database. The other thing that you can do using the text evaluator is load sets that aren't just classified as good or bad. For example, you could load different sets that have to do with different managers on your plant floor. So if you have a shipping manager or a receiving manager or any other types of managers, you could set up a different set for each one. And then if an operator enters a note that has to do with one of those managers, you could email the correct one. There are many other ways to use natural language processing in GainSeeker, and we're excited to see how this command gets used.
Awesome. And I have a question already.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a couple of them. The first one I have is, hey, will version 9.2 include the Python script, or will it be in the Python library? It appears as though the text evaluator function will be included, but I'm not sure about the Python that you put together.
Yeah. Both the Python scripts that I use today, so the one in the inspection and this one that exports the CSV file, will be on the script library when 9.2 is released.
Now, because those scripts use functionality not implemented until version 9.2, we'll flag them as 9.2 internally, which means if you're not running 9.2 or later, they won't show up in your script library list.
Okay, good point.
For example, if there's a script that uses functionality in 8.9 and you're running 8.8, it won't show up in your list until you would upgrade to 8.9. So the same thing will be true here. You can always email one of us if you want to see it ahead of time, but it really doesn't do you any good to have that be able to download that script if it uses functionality only present in 9.2 or later.
Awesome, thank you. Another question I have that goes more towards the inspection that you just showed us at first is, what if I want to let the operator get away with a bad note for once? You know, kind of giving them like a warning when I want to put it in there.
Yeah, you could definitely do that. So in the script I was using, I was just returning, I was canceling the submit function in Python if it ended up being a bad note. But you could do things like just show a warning and let them continue with the submission. You could use like a disp.to button and let them, you know, have a choice. Do I want to continue with this bad note, or do I want to go back and fix it? So yeah, there's a lot of different options that you could do with that.
And then on that case, the other one I have is, what if the note is good, but it's not in the training set? So is that something like another use for a button?
Yeah, so then you could set up another, you could use like a disp.3 button if you wanted to add that functionality. And then you could use like a password command to let a manager come over. If they entered their password in there, then they could add the note into the training set. Yep. So and do that all dynamically.
So that note they just entered could be added to the training set, like the good training set.
So you don't have to worry about just okaying it now and then have to manually add it. It actually goes in.
Yep. You could use a Python command to add it to that set.
Well, that's awesome. Anybody else have questions or a scenario you think that's going to be helpful? I'll even open it up to questions from the PowerPoint slide that Byron's shown. Is everybody aware of what was currently in there? Definitely appreciate some feedback. Usually we run kind of late. We're running kind of early, so I'm opening up the questions. We got a couple of the smartest people in the room here, so let's see if we can get a question they can answer. I'm sorry, I'm just totally throwing you on the spot. No.
You know, I'm curious about this best guess function. The way Jacob set it up, it's looking at both the sets and the notes themselves, and the end users could modify those percentages as to what's considered good or bad. You know, this might be the kind of thing where they want to fine tune it and say, you know, 70, it's okay if it passes 70% versus 90%, something like that. But I think he's got it pretty well documented there.
I was going to say that's
the logic.
Comments.
Yeah, good comments. Behind the logic behind that, in terms of using two different AI algorithms in essence to figure it out, and then using both of them to determine is it okay or not. So I'll be curious if people get using this, what kind of percentages they'll end up using in terms of what they let go through and what they don't, how restrictive it is.
Yeah, I'm quite excited. And you said 9.2 is coming out approximately?
April.
All right.
So we'll have this these scripts up in the script library. When people get 9.2, they'll be able to see them at that point, and download them and play with them.
So that's awesome. Again, if anybody has any questions, want to see one of the slides again, interactions to the inspections. I think, Jacob, you did such a good job explaining everything.
Nobody has any questions.
No, nobody has any questions for you. And we have some good attendance. I'm not opposed to ending early, but I want to make sure that we have an opportunity. Usually we don't have an opportunity to just open it up for any type of questions. Nobody wants to stump the developer. I'll give him a brownie point. Sorry, I'm gonna get beat up on afterwards here. Okay, I might have a couple more. What about some other features that are going to be in 9.2? You kind of want to spill the beans?
I guess one that I showed a little bit was that defect trend wizard, which can show you either by percentages or by counts, you know, what defects are trending up or down. So, you know, you may have a 300% increase in a defect, but it might only be a couple of counts actually versus huge count increase, which may be a small percentage. So you can use both there to look at that.
And I do have another, oh, sorry,
Oh,
were you
yeah,
gonna keep going?
yeah, one other thing in 9.2, the OEE time chart is pretty cool, where you can split out, say, by machine or by department or shift or however. It'll show you green and red blocks, you know, was it running at a certain percentage or not.
And that's by time, right?
By
Shows you-
time, and then you can right-click on that and drill down into those too. So you've got all the typical GainSeeker drill down capabilities with that as well. So that's a new OEE time chart. That's going to be pretty cool.
Nice. I know you guys are working a lot on expanding OEE and connecting and charting and all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Another question, I think it's back to the button scripts. It says, can you provide the additional button scripts as well? I think that was in the scenario of one of the questions we were talking about, being able to...
Yeah, being able to do different things based on the operator's response. Yeah, we could include those.
And do
in the
we have
script
anything
library.
currently as far as an example for buttons? Why do I think we had an example?
Yeah,
of
we
something
We do on the script library.
Yeah.
And it's,
But I think probably what's being asked there is, like right now, you just have a OK button to add a yes, no, or a yes, no, and a third button, which would be like add to the data set.
Yeah.
You could put those in and comment them out, and people could turn them on and off as they want. That's a good idea.
all
I like
right,
that.
yay.
Okay, great.
Brownie point for the good idea. So, see, we're doing enhancements while you wait. No.
All right.
That's awesome. Trying to think of any other features for 9.2, but you guys have been awesome. I'm going to slowly wrap this up. We can definitely be 5 minutes early. If you guys are like me, we've got like 18 other things to do today. Make sure you see for next month of April, we've got the registration for Tech Tips on there. It is monthly, every third Thursday at 2 o'clock. Ever have any ideas, email me at jen@hertzler.com. We've had some comments and suggestions, and we're trying to get them in the works, so definitely appreciate that.
I think we're doing a preview of 9.2 next month.
Oh,
Is that
April,
right?
yeah, 9.2. So be
we'll
sure to...
We'll show you some of the other new features as well.
Yep, so I guess that wraps it up. If you guys have any questions offline, you know how to reach me. I will send an email most likely next week, giving you a link of the WebEx when it gets generated for us. And if anybody has questions, you can respond. So again, thank you so much for joining. Jacob, thanks for taking time out and showing this awesome script. Byron,
Absolutely.
thank you for dealing with me and presenting this. So everybody have a great day, and we'll talk to you guys soon.